There is a second history of Egypt. It is not written on papyrus, but etched into the very bedrock of the planet. It is a language of impossible geometry, of multi-ton blocks of granite moved like pebbles, and of subterranean chambers carved with a precision that mocks our modern technology. This history is hidden in plain sight, in the silent, flooded shafts that predate the pharaohs, in the colossal, mirror-finished boxes of the Serapeum, and in the cyclopean foundations of structures that official records insist should not exist. The story we are told is one of ramp building, human strength, and primitive copper chisels. But the stone itself testifies to something else. It speaks of a forgotten chapter, a lost technological prowess, and a civilization so advanced that its very existence has been scrubbed from our textbooks. Before we dive in, just a quick reminder that a simple like and subscribe is the best way to support the channel. Thank you so much for being here. These are not simply mysteries. They are forensic evidence. They are clues in the single greatest cold case in human history. Today, we are not tourists. We are investigators. We will follow this trail of stone, a path that leads us back not just thousands, but tens of thousands of years, into an abyss of time. We will confront a truth about who we were and the shocking, profound reality of what we have forgotten. We have been conditioned to believe that history is a linear progression, a slow crawl from the primitive to the complex. But what if that is a lie? What if millennia ago, a civilization on the banks of the Nile reached a technological zenith that we are only now beginning to comprehend? What if the most iconic monuments of Egypt are not the beginning of a great story, but rather the final, fading echo of something immeasurably older and more powerful? We will journey beneath the sands to examine the physical evidence that orthodox science willfully ignores. We will descend into the forbidden zones, analyze the artifacts that defy chronology, and piece together a puzzle whose fragments are scattered across the desert. Prepare to question everything you have been taught. The investigation begins now. Our first clue lies in the darkness, deep beneath the sun-scorched necropolis of Saqqara. Far from the tourist trails of Giza, this site breaks every conventional model of the ancient world. This is the Serapeum. Officially, it is the burial ground for the sacred Apis bulls, manifestations of the god Ptah. In reality, it is a gallery of the impossible. Imagine kilometers of tunnels, blasted from the solid limestone bedrock. The air is dead, thick with the taste of saltpeter and millennia-old dust. The silence is absolute, a pressurized weight against the eardrums. In this gloom, your flashlight beam catches something that the human mind refuses to process. In alcoves lining the corridor, they stand, 25 monolithic boxes, each carved from a single solid piece of Aswan granite. To call them sarcophagi is an insult. These are divine tier bank vaults. Each box weighs approximately 70 metric tons. The lid, also a single block, adds another 30 tons. That is 100 tons of solid igneous rock, quarried 800 kilometers to the south, transported, somehow lowered through a narrow, twisting shaft, and then navigated through these tight tunnels to be placed with microscopic precision. The weight is a logistical nightmare, but the machining is the true anomaly. Granite is one of the hardest materials on Earth, registering a 7 on the Mohs scale. The primary tool of the dynastic Egyptians, we are told, was copper, which has a hardness of 3. Attempting to cut granite with a copper chisel is like trying to saw through a modern tank with a plastic knife. Yet, the surfaces of these 100-ton boxes are perfectly, impossibly flat, polished to a mirror sheen that reflects your light. The internal and external corners are not rounded or rough. They are perfect 90-degree angles, so sharp you could cut yourself. When engineers like Christopher Dunn, author of The Giza Power Plant, examined these boxes with modern precision gauges, they were stunned. The tolerances for flatness are measured in microns. Some surfaces show a deviation of less than 0.02 of an inch, a level of precision that modern fabrication shops would struggle to achieve today without computer-controlled diamond-tipped grinding machines. How did ancient builders, supposedly lacking even iron, quarry these monolithic giants, make their surfaces dimensionally perfect, hollow them out while maintaining uniform wall thickness, and polish them to a reflective state? And the ultimate question, why? The official story is for bull mummies, But this explanation is intellectually bankrupt. Many of these boxes were found empty. No remains, no residue, no artifacts. Why expend this superhuman, godlike effort to create engineering masterpieces only to leave them unused? The single sarcophagus that the discoverer, Auguste Mariette, did find containing bull remains was a chaotic mess of bitumen and bone fragments, universally regarded as a later intrusive burial by a far less sophisticated culture. Dunn and other researchers have proposed a more radical and more logical theory. These were not coffins. They were high-tech devices. The impossible precision suggests a technological function, perhaps as harmonic resonators, tuned to a specific frequency, part of a larger industrial or energetic process. The chasm between the primitive purpose, a dead bull, and the supernatural execution, micron-level precision, is our first and most critical piece of evidence. The Serapeum is not a tomb. It is a technological fingerprint left by a civilization whose capabilities dwarf our understanding of the past. To find our next clue, we must travel in time to the dawn of the 20th century and follow an Italian archaeologist named Alessandro Barsanti. In 1900, Barsanti, already famous for his work at Amarna, was excavating the Layer Pyramid at Zawiet El Arian, a few kilometers from Giza. The work was fruitless. Disappointed, he decided to take a different route back to his camp, a path across the upper plateau. His professional eye caught what others had missed, a scattering of granite chips and fine granite dust. This was a vital clue. The local bedrock is limestone. This was Aswan granite, the sacred stone, being worked far from any known monument. Intuition took over. Barsanti believed he was standing directly above something important. He assembled his team and began to dig. Within days, they uncovered the entrance to a colossal vertical trench cut deep into the limestone plateau. To his astonishment, the trench was choked with massive limestone blocks, each weighing several tons. They had been thrown in haphazardly, in a panic. This was not construction. This was a cover-up. It was the deliberate, desperate concealment of whatever lay at the bottom. Barsanti and his men began the arduous task of clearing the shaft. On December 8th, at a depth of 21 meters, they struck the first block of pink granite. His heart pounded. Pink Aswan granite was reserved for the most important, most sacred of structures. Its presence here, in a hidden pit, meant he was on the verge of a major discovery. As they cleared the debris, more granite blocks appeared, forming a massive unified structure at the bottom of the trench. By February 1905, the team had cleared the floor. It was a pavement of enormous 30-ton granite blocks, interlocked like a giant jigsaw puzzle and sealed with an incredibly strong, unknown mortar. Barsanti was certain. This was not a foundation. This was a roof, sealing an entrance to a subterranean world. During the excavation, workers found mysterious inscriptions, cartouches with the name of an unknown pharaoh. Sketches were sent to Cairo, but no Egyptologist could agree on their meaning. The mystery deepened. It was then that Barsanti made his strangest discovery. Set into the center of the granite floor was a perfect oval-shaped tub carved from a single piece of polished pink granite. It too was sealed with a lid and layers of lime and clay. When the lid was finally prized open, there was no treasure, no mummy, only a fine black film coating the inner walls. Barsanti speculated it was the residue of a liquid offering, evaporated over millennia. But why? Why this monumental effort to entomb a bathtub? Why carve, polish, and hermetically seal it in the center of this cyclopean floor, 20 meters underground? Barsanti became obsessed with lifting the granite floor. He was convinced there was a void beneath it. Two events confirmed his suspicion. First, his team uncovered a beautifully finished staircase on the north end, leading down to the granite floor, a ceremonial descent to a sealed entrance. Second, during a freak rainstorm, the trench flooded, but the water level then dropped with impossible speed, as if it had found a drain, a massive, hollow chamber below. But fate intervened. By 1906, his funding was gone. It took him years to secure more. He resumed work in 1911, but the task of breaching the granite floor proved too complex, too expensive. Barsanti was forced to abandon his excavation, and he died in 1917, leaving one of Egyptology's greatest enigmas unsolved. And then, the story gets stranger. For decades, Barsanti's pit was left to the desert. But in the 1960s, when new teams of researchers sought to finish his work, the Egyptian government suddenly declared the entire archaeological site of Zawiat El Aryan a restricted military zone. It remains so to this day. Why? What is under that granite floor that requires it to be hidden not by ancient pharaohs, but by a modern military? Barsanti's puzzle is no longer just archaeological. It is geopolitical. We have found something that is not just forgotten, but actively concealed. The anomaly at Zawiat El Aryan takes on a shocking new context when viewed alongside the most famous and misunderstood structure on Earth, the Great Pyramid of Giza. For centuries, we've been told it's the tomb of the pharaoh Khufu. This theory collapses on first contact with the facts. No mummy was ever found, no treasures, no funerary artifacts. The king's chamber contains only a crude, lidless granite box. The pyramid's complex internal design, with its ascending and descending passages, narrow ventilation shafts, and layered chambers, is absurdly, perfectly dysfunctional as a tomb. A new wave of research, led by engineers, has provided a chillingly plausible alternative. In the 1960s, engineer Edward Kunkel proposed the pyramid was a giant hydraulic ram pump. In the 1990s, marine engineer John Cadman built on this, creating scale models of the subterranean chamber and proving it could function as a pump, creating powerful hydraulic shock waves. But Cadman's experiments led to an unexpected discovery. The pump's action would generate powerful compression waves, low-frequency acoustic pulses that could be converted into energy. This raises the staggering question: was the Great Pyramid a machine, a power plant? The evidence is overwhelming. The inner chambers are built of Aswan granite, which is over 50% quartz crystal. Quartz is piezoelectric. It generates an electric current when subjected to mechanical pressure, like the acoustic vibrations from the pump. The pyramid was originally cased in white Tura limestone, a material that is a fantastic electrical insulator. The ventilation shafts are not for air. They are precise, 45-degree angled passages. Researcher Chris Dunn argues they were waveguides for channeling energy. The capstone, or pyramidion, was said to be made of solid gold, an excellent electrical conductor, designed to gather and concentrate the energy generated by the machine. In 1980, the Nippon Corporation attempted to build a 35-foot replica of the pyramid, using modern construction technology. They failed. Their machinery couldn't move the blocks, and they concluded they lacked the technology to replicate the original. This power plant theory recasts the entire Giza plateau. The sarcophagi in the Serapeum could be harmonic tuners. The bathtub at Zawiat El Aryan, with its black electrolytic residue, could be another component in a vast continental-scale energy grid. And perhaps this is why the pit was sealed and why the site is under military lockdown. It contains a component of a lost energy technology that would fundamentally change our world. The evidence of a civilization with godlike engineering skills is not confined to Giza. The father of history, Herodotus, writing in the 5th century BC, described a structure that he claimed dwarfed even the pyramids. He called it the Labyrinth. Located at Hawara, he wrote, "I have seen this work, and it surpasses all description. For if one should put together all the walls and great works of the Greeks, they would appear to have cost less labor and expense than this one labyrinth." He described a colossal 2-story complex with all 3,000 rooms, 1,500 above ground and 1,500 below. The later geographer Strabo described it as having ceilings of a single stone, and the passages were walled with slabs of stone, all of great size. For centuries, this was dismissed as a traveler's tall tale. But in the 1880s, the legendary archaeologist Flinders Petrie began excavating at the base of the Hawara Pyramid. He found not a building, but a vast 300-meter-wide field of stone chips and fragments, the foundations of a structure so immense it could have held the temples of Karnak and Luxor combined. He concluded this was the base of the labyrinth, which had been quarried away during the Roman era. But the story did not end there. In 2008, a Belgian-Egyptian team from the Mataha project conducted geophysical scans of the area using ground-penetrating radar, GPR. The results were stunning. Deep beneath the level Petrie identified as the foundation, the GPR detected a massive grid-like network of walls, chambers, and corridors stretching over a vast area at a depth of 8 to 12 meters. Petrie had not found the foundation, he had found the roof. The labyrinth, or at least its entire subterranean level, still exists, intact, just waiting to be excavated. When the team tried to publish these sensational findings, a political firestorm erupted. Dr. Zahi Hawass, then head of the Supreme Council of Antiquities, allegedly suppressed the report, citing national security. Only after 2 years of pressure was a sanitized version of the report released in a niche academic journal, confirming the existence of a massive, man-made underground structure. Why the censorship? What is in those 100 buried rooms that officials are so desperate to keep hidden? The labyrinth is not just a lost building. It is another piece of actively concealed history, a potential hall of records for the civilization that built it. The clues of this civilization's true age are scattered across all of Egypt, but nowhere are they more profound than at Abydos, the cult center of the god Osiris. Here, built directly behind the New Kingdom temple of Pharaoh Seti I, is a structure that looks like nothing else in Egypt. This is the Osirian. Officially, it's a cenotaph, a symbolic tomb for Seti I. But its architecture and geology tell a radically different story. The Osirian is built from megalithic blocks of pink granite, many weighing over 100 tons. They are fitted together without mortar in a polygonal style that is starkly different from the small block construction of Seti's temple. This style is virtually identical to megalithic sites in Peru, like Sacsayhuaman. Egyptian temples are books in stone, every inch covered in hieroglyphs. The Osirian's core structure is silent. Its massive bare walls speak not in words but in scale and precision. The Osirian is built 15 meters deeper than the foundation of Seti's temple. This strongly suggests that when Seti built his temple, the Osirian was already an ancient half-buried ruin, which he discovered and piously built around. But the Osirian's greatest mystery is water. Its central platform is surrounded by a channel that is perpetually, inexplicably filled with water. For decades, archaeologists have tried to pump it dry. The water always returns, seeping in from an unknown source. It is not connected to the Nile or the local water table. The anomalies are even stranger. Researcher James Westerman found that the water inside the Osirian is consistently several degrees warmer than the surrounding groundwater, a violation of thermodynamics, unless there is an active energy source beneath it. Geologist Dr. Robert Schoch, famous for redating the Sphinx, found the most damning clue: the limestone retaining walls around the granite core show indisputable signs of massive water erosion caused by thousands of years of heavy rainfall. But Egypt's climate became arid over 5,000 years ago. This erosion profile means the Osirian must have been built at the end of the last ice age, over 10,000 to 12,000 years ago, in an era of primitive hunter-gatherers. The Osirian is a geological and engineering impossibility. It is a smoking gun, pointing to a civilization that could move 100-ton blocks, engineer complex hydrology, and which existed thousands of years before the first pharaoh. Our final, and perhaps most disturbing piece of evidence lies right back at Giza, hidden beneath the causeway connecting the Sphinx to the second pyramid. This is the Osiris Shaft. It is a 115-foot vertical well cut into the bedrock, divided into 3 levels. Level 1 is an empty room, and level 2 is another chamber containing 6 alcoves and a massive granite sarcophagus. Level 3, at the very bottom, is a flooded cavern. In the middle of this dark subterranean lake sits a stone island, upon which rests another 40-ton granite sarcophagus. This is the literal, physical embodiment of the Egyptian myth of Osiris's tomb. But it is not a myth. It is an engineering project. While officially dated to the late period, recent analysis obliterates this theory. A sarcophagus from level 2 was tested using optical thermoluminescence, a method that determines the last time a mineral was exposed to sunlight. The shocking result: the stone had not seen light since at least 3350 BC, centuries before. The pyramids were supposedly built. The material itself is another impossibility. One of the sarcophagi is carved from dacite, a hard volcanic rock. There are no dacite quarries in Egypt. The nearest sources are in Europe. This implies a prehistoric civilization with a global logistics chain capable of quarrying and shipping 40-ton blocks across continents to be lowered into a 100-foot shaft. And again, like a repeating signature, we find high-tech anomalies. Elevated radiation levels have been recorded inside the sarcophagi. One was found coated on the inside with bitumen, under which was a layer of metal containing lead. Lead is a primary insulator against radiation. Why would these ancient builders radiation shield a sarcophagus from the inside? What was this shaft truly for? What was in those boxes? In a documentary, Dr. Hawass himself pointed to a side tunnel on the flooded bottom level, stating it was unexplored. Today, that tunnel is sealed with modern breeze blocks. What was found there? The Osiris shaft is not a tomb. It is a multi-level, pre-dynastic technological complex. When we assemble these 6 files, the precision of the Serapeum, the concealment of Zawiet el-Aryan, the energy of Giza, the archives of the labyrinth, the antiquity of the Osirian, and the exotic materials of the Osiris shaft, the official narrative is not just questioned, it is annihilated. These structures are not the product of dynastic Egypt, they are a legacy. The pharaohs we know did not build them, they found them. They were the inheritors, a cargo cult civilization that built their primitive mud brick tombs and lesser pyramids on top of and in imitation of these Cyclopean wonders. They revered these sites as the work of the gods, attempting to reuse them without understanding their original function. This theory explains every inconsistency. It explains why Egyptian technology devolved. The oldest structures are the most advanced. It explains the presence of machine marks, like the spiral grooves on Core 7, an artifact that shows a drill feeding into solid granite at a rate 500 times faster than modern diamond drills. This was a civilization that possessed advanced machining, complex engineering, and a profound understanding of acoustics, energy, and perhaps even radioactivity. Who were they? We do not know their name, but we see their fingerprints. This was perhaps a global maritime civilization, the same one that left megalithic traces in Peru, Bolivia, and across the world. A civilization wiped out by a global cataclysm at the end of the last ice age, the event remembered in myth as the Great Flood. We are not the apex of human achievement. We are a species with amnesia, slowly rediscovering the science of a forgotten golden age. This investigation is not closed, it is barely open. Every clue leads to more profound questions. If not the pharaohs, then who? What catastrophic event could erase a global civilization but leave its greatest monument standing? And the most troubling question, why is this evidence ignored, suppressed, or actively hidden? Why is Zawiet el-Aryan a military zone? Why was the labyrinth's discovery censored? Is it incompetence, or is it a deliberate policy to protect a fragile historical narrative, a narrative that would crumble, along with our religious and social institutions, if the truth of our pre-human past were ever revealed? The stone keeps its secrets, but it also presents its evidence. The case is open. The investigation continues. A huge thank you to everyone who watched this video to the end. Your support, a like, and a subscription is very important to us. And don't forget to hit the bell icon so you can always stay up to date and never miss our new videos.